John and everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm Michelle Porgas, and I am the FEB co-chair for today's webinar Lunch and Learn series. And I'm proud to have us be joined today by two professional speakers here in the Kansas City area. We're delighted to have you here for today. But before we begin, we do have a couple of quick housekeeping items to go over. If you have a question, please make sure you use the chat feature either located at the top or the bottom of your screen, or raise your hand feature, as we're always encouraging questions. Please be mindful and respectful with our audience and speaker and mute yourself. No video is needed at this time. Also, you will be able to find today's presentation located on the FEB website, and we will post a link to both at the beginning as well as the end of our Lunch and Learn, as well as how to contact our speakers for today. As always, welcome. We have two people here joining us, Becky Alvis and Matt Anderson, here from First Command. Becky is a financial planning consultant at the First Command home office in Fort Worth, Texas. Matt Anderson happens to be our local connection here in the greater Kansas City area between Leavenworth and Leawood, Kansas. Becky is currently an instrumental part of the training and coaching at the First Command advisors regarding financial planning strategies, concepts, and techniques so we can better serve our clients. She also serves as a subject matter expert on issues relating to Social Security, Medicare, federal employee benefits for all First Command advisors. Becky holds a Bachelor of Applied Arts and Sciences and Master of Business Administration degree from Tarleton State University in Stephenville, Texas. Additionally, she has completed her Certified Financial Planner coursework through the American College and is studying for the state board exam later this fall. We also have Matt Anderson, who's going to be joining us today as our local contact here for the greatest Kansas City area. He'll be able to help guide you, answering your questions along the way. If we want to go ahead and get started, Becky, I'll hand it off to you.
Awesome. Well, good day. Thank you for that warm introduction, Michelle. As she mentioned, my name is Becky. I've been with First Command about 25 years, just celebrated my 25th anniversary, and I'm a financial planning consultant with First Command Financial Services. As a federal government employee, you are offered a range of benefits, and you can really tailor your benefit package to your unique needs and even your financial goals. But with all of the options that are on the table and available to you as a federal employee, assembling that package can be a little tricky. But that's going to be most beneficial to you and navigating those challenging choices. You might also find it difficult to figure out your benefits and how they fit into your total financial picture. But what I want to do today is help you make sure that you're maximizing your benefits. There are some really great, savvy ways to package your benefits, but they can also be confusing. This is where the 7 common mistakes come into play. And let me just make sure, can all of you see my screens before I move forward? Perfect. Good. So this is where those common mistakes come into play. What we're going to spend our time about today is really talking about things that you might already be wondering while we talk about mistakes instead of 7 brilliant financial moves. Well, it's because experience tells us that effectively pursuing your financial objectives is just as much about the moves you don't make as the moves that you do make. I know there's a lot of disclaimers that you might see on the slides in front of you, but all of you are very familiar with the federal government regulations, and I'm sure that you can appreciate that we are required to do this. This presentation is educational only, and there's no specific financial or retirement advice being offered at this time. Facts and opinions expressed are based on research and experience, but not endorsed by the federal government. With those disclaimers established, I know as a federal employee, you have access to retirement savings and healthcare plans, including group life insurance and even more. So I want you to think for a second about the other pieces of your entire financial picture. Your savings, with your mortgage, your insurance. Now, it might be easier to understand that your federal benefits are only one part of the entire picture. If you can imagine a puzzle, right? And you have these pieces that interplay with one another, that's what we're talking about. Your federal benefits package is one piece of the broader puzzle. So we're going to start trying to connect those things today. The first mistake we want to talk about is assuming that your financial future is set thanks to your government benefits. This can lead to complacency, perhaps, and puts a focus on retirement only. And this could be part of your financial put your financial well-being at risk. With a host of benefits and convenient payroll deductions, it's easy to become complacent about your financial preparedness. Maybe you're investing in an L fund in your thrift savings plan that's timed to your specific retirement. But there are more immediate financial goals that you need to address. Is there federal employee group life insurance enough to replace your income if needed? Have you thought about that? What about if you're held financially liable beyond your home and auto insurance coverage limits, right? What does that do to your entire financial picture? How will you pay for a child's education? What can you do to ensure that your assets transfer to your children or grandchildren as you intend after you and or your spouse are gone? Have you really put thought into some of those components? This is just a snapshot of some of the questions that we most often get, and they're not fully answered by your benefits available to you. A comprehensive financial plan, though, can help ensure that all the pieces of your financial picture connect to serve your needs and goals. Moving into mistake number 2. The second mistake that we can make, right, if we're on the autopilot, is not knowing exactly how much we need for retirement. It doesn't matter which market that I work with, whether I'm working with the federal market or civilians or the military market. That is a big looming question, is how much do I need in retirement? Many folks say, I don't know how much I need for retirement. And that's a common response. And part of the advisor's job is to help coach clients to determine what that goal looks like for them. Too often, people fail to address this topic until they're nearing retirement, when it's almost too late or too late entirely. And then they discover that they have to adjust their expectations for the reality of their financial situation. How much truly is enough to retire on? For decades, the rule of thumb was 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income. But what was true even 10 years ago may not even be true today. For one thing, the rule assumed a relatively short, sedentary retirement with low fixed expenses. Fast forward to today, folks are living longer. Their life expectancies are longer than ever before, and they are more active in their retirement in terms of their lifestyles. Many retirees may require higher income for a longer period than previous generations. And with healthcare on the rise and uncertainty over the level of Social Security benefits FERS participants may receive, it's easy to see why today many suggest planning on 100% of your pre-retirement income. Now, to determine if you're on track for your retirement goal, you need to consider several factors. The first thing you need to consider is, at what age do you intend to retire? And kind of in your back of your mind, kind of had a backup plan as well, right? What is your ideal goal? And then what is that secondary goal if we get close to that and we're not quite where we need to go, right? And for how many years should you plan your money to last? That's an important idea as well. What do you have in savings today and in investments? Are you investing properly? Are you allocated properly for your retirement income goals? What other assets might you have? For example, your home. Do you own it? Are you renting? What does that situation look like? So as we're unfolding kind of the important things to think about as we plan for our retirement, there's a lot of things that you need to be considering. And finally, what are your spouse or your partner's retirement needs and expected contributions as well? So we've just highlighted a few of the things to start getting those wheels turning and thinking about that long-term, that retirement. So some of you may be very close to retirement in terms of number of years until. Some of you may be a little bit ways off, but you need to be thinking about and planning for retirement now. And then, do you have a full understanding of the blended retirement system? Now, let's look at what some of your peers have indicated over the last year or so. These figures come from First Command's Behavioral Index, which is our company study of trends among American public's financial behaviors. The numbers I'm about to show you are from surveys of the general population ages 25 to 70. So that's a huge range. That's a broad range with household incomes of $50,000 or more. We asked this population in the survey, how confident are you in your ability to retire comfortably? That's kind of an uncomfortable question. In our third quarter survey, only 34% of respondents said that they felt extremely or very secure in their ability to retire. The average over the last 5 quarters is only 33.2%. But what about all of you? Does anyone here feel comfortable discussing how you really feel about your retirement confidence? That's a tricky question. So what I'd like you to do is feel more confident and comfortable about your personal retirement. And at the end of this presentation, I'll give you a survey to complete. And if you're interested in visiting, you can complete the portion of the survey with your contact information, and a representative, Matt, my friend Matt, will be reaching out to you to do some follow-up. Leading into mistake number 3, failing to take advantage fully of your thrift savings plan, or TSP, and the matching retirement contributions. If you're a FERS participant, you receive an automatic agency contribution to your TSP account equal to 1% of your pay. And that's automatic. You don't have to do anything but draw your check in order to receive that. However, you can also increase that amount of your contributions to your TSP, let's say up to 5% of your basic pay, through the agency automatic and agency matching contributions. Now, this chart illustrates the total contributions an employee would have invested in TSP account based on the percentage that they invest. Like agency automatic contributions, matching contributions are not taken out of your pay. They also do not decrease the dollar amount of your pay for income tax purposes, which is another component of the planning part. Combined with agency automatic contributions, they can add as much as 5% basic pay per pay period to your TSP account. Now, as you can see, to take maximum advantage of agency contributions, FERS employees must contribute at least 5% of their eligible pay to TSP. Any amount less than 5% contribution is like giving up free money and leaving it with Uncle Sam. Of importance, I want to call your attention to the fact that as of October 2020, all new TSP participants will automatically be enrolled at the 5% contribution level. That is to ensure that you are able to receive the maximum matching contributions for your contributions. And before that date, you'll notice on the chart, the old default contribution level was only 3%. Now, the current elective deferral limit, meaning the maximum annual contribution that you can make to your TSP account in 2022 is $20,500. Participants aged 50 and older can, however, make catch-up contributions up to $6,500 annually. By the way, how many of you are currently participating in TSP? Can I see a show of hands if you can find the annotation section at the top of your screen? I would love to see how many of you are actually actively participating in your TSP. Wonderful. So many hands are going up, and this is exactly what I want to see. If you're not, I would encourage you to be engaged in that TSP, and of super importance, make sure you are contributing to the appropriate funds within TSP to make sure that you are allocated properly. If you're already putting in the maximum amount eligible into your TSP, consider then putting additional funds into a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA offers a wide array of investment choices which are not available through TSP. Though contributions to a Roth IRA are not tax deductible, earnings and distributions or withdrawals are tax exempt. And if you like this idea, the TSP Roth option might interest you. Now, are there any CSRS, Civil Service Retirement System participants in the audience? Go ahead and raise your hand if you are a CSRS employee. And I'm going to flip through here. Most of you appear to be in the FERS system, which is exactly what I expected to see, but I never want to leave out our SIRS friends. Good. If there were any CSRS participants, although they don't receive matching contributions, they can still participate in TSP like our FERS employees with the same contribution limits. On the screen, we can see some important information regarding TSP kind of in that disclaimer area. But in brief, because it isn't in fine print, it just states that before you request a rollover to an IRA, you should consider whether the rollover is suitable for you. Is that a suitable choice for you to roll over TSP? The TSP offers very low administration cost and investment expenses, as well as various withdrawal options. So you should always explore this, and if you need more detailed information, you can always visit www.tsp.gov for more information. Here's an example of some simple ways to save a few dollars every single day. And I found this tremendously, interesting. In this chart, we're going to kind of unfold level by level, and you can see what some simple ways to save a few dollars every day. And it's from the TSP website, so I want to give credit where credit is due. But by saving on bottled water, on mobile apps, on lottery tickets, on dry cleaning, and other things like specialty coffees and all the things, right? Takeout lunches. It's incredible to see how much money you can save and how money can grow over the years. Now, these figures account for a 6% annual return compounded monthly if invested, and do not include matching contributions. But look at some of these numbers. A bottled water we spend about $45 a month, and in 20 years, we would have over $20,000. In 30 years' time, we would have about $45,000. And in 40 years, if we saved that $45 a month, we would have almost $90,000 from a bottled water. So it's simple things like this that you can implement into your daily spending plan to help accumulate those dollars over time to help support our retirement goals. Mistake number 4 is not
Hey.
having,
Hi,
yes,
Becky, this is Matt. Did you want to maybe, we have one question in
yes, please.
the Q&A. I think it was more of a joke, but from Misha on how does one successfully retire if they cut back on lottery tickets? So Misha, I'm pretty sure that was a joke, but what I did want to inject is, does anybody have any questions of Becky on TSP before we move on to the 4th mistake? And if you do, please put that in chat and I will forward that. Okay, I'm not seeing anything.
Okay.
So,
Good.
all right, Becky, I'm sorry to.
No, you're good. You're
All right.
good. Thank you for that. So although it might have
Wait,
had a slight,
we did have a question, and it's a really good one.
Sure.
Can you talk about the difference between traditional and Roth TSP?
Wonderful question. So your traditional TSP is going to be very similar to a 401k, where when you make that contribution, you are not paying, or you are paying taxes up front, right? So in the future, when you start to take those distributions or withdrawals, there's some tax advantages of having that invested. But when you get out to retirement after age 59 and a half, and you make a qualified distribution or a qualified withdrawal, you then have to pay taxes, right? So let's say you put $1,000 in your traditional TSP. Great. Your $1,000 goes in and it starts growing tax deferred. And when you take those dollars out, you have to pay taxes on it. The Roth component came along after TSP was established. You know, they did the traditional for a while and then they incorporated the Roth component. Well, the Roth functions very similar to a Roth IRA, whereas if you had the same $7,000, $1,000, excuse me, you're going to pay taxes up front on that Roth contribution. But when you get ready to make that qualified distribution in the future, you've already paid the taxes. So you are taking a tax-free distribution in retirement on those dollars. The difference between a Roth IRA and a Roth TSP is that, and we're not going to get into the details here, but your advisor can certainly talk through this. Your Roth IRA does not require required minimum distributions at age 72 or RMDs. Your Roth 401k will require those required the RMDs at age 72. So they function very similar in that they are tax deferred and you take those tax-free distributions during retirement. A traditional, you're not paying taxes up front, so you're having to pay them on the back end when you do take those distributions.
Becky,
And
we've
Matt.
got a couple other really great questions. So I think I'm going to come back to a couple of them, but one, since we're on the subject of traditional versus Roth, the follow-on question is it possible to roll over the traditional TSP contributions to the Roth TSP and therefore reduce those tax burdens?
You can, and we see that frequently. Now, let me also kind of put a finer point here. If you're getting those agency matching contributions or automatic agency contributions of 1%, or any agency matching contributions, let me just be clear that all the agency or employer contributions will always go into your traditional component. You, as the federal employee, can decide. You can fund your traditional or you can fund your Roth TSP or both. That's completely up to you. And there are some smart ways to convert those traditional dollars, pay the taxes up front on the conversion, so that when you get to retirement and need to take those qualified distributions, then they become tax-free. And as a plug for that, the Tax Cuts of Jobs Act right now has lower tax brackets, so that allows folks to kind of spread out that tax burden for conversions between now and the end of 2025 to help facilitate some of that tax deferred growth. Great question.
Yeah. We've got two other questions. I think these are pretty quick. And then what we'll do is we'll move on to mistake 4, and then we'll have time for a question and answer at the end as well. And so we can always come back to other questions about TSP. So the first question, Becky, is what's the best risk level for TSP, low, moderate, or high? And the second question is, in I'm sure many cases, people were in the military, have a TSP from their military time, and then after they left military service, began federal service and started another TSP. And what's the opportunity to combine those two?
Great questions. First, let me address how they're allocated, right? Do I go moderate? Do I go conservative? Well, there's not a really concrete answer there, right? So that's a personal, very unique situation where you need to determine what your risk tolerance is, like how adverse are you to risk, market risk, or how conservative. Sometimes that means generally younger folks who have a longer lead time to retirement, generally they can be more aggressive, more moderately aggressive or more aggressive. But it all depends on what your value of money is, what your belief systems are around money. So that's something that we do have risk questionnaires to identify through a series of a few questions. What is your risk tolerance? And then based on that, then invest in the funds which are allocated towards your personal risk tolerance. So that's an excellent question, but not one that I could just give you a blanket answer on. The next question was, what if I have a military TSP and what if I have a federal TSP? Great question. I've had it in the past. I know that they are two separate and distinct accounts. What are the opportunities of rolling those, maybe combining those? Great question. I'd love to table that and come back to you. So Matt, if you will make a note of who asked that question, I want to make sure in the landscape of all the changing legislations that I am not giving old information or old answers on that particular one. So I want to circle back and give them a valid answer.
I've got that name down, and there actually were several that indicated that they have that situation. So I'll get all the names.
Perfect. Good. Thank you. All right. If you'll just keep tracking those questions, we're going to move into mistake number 4. Is not having an insurance strategy. Now, I get it. I get it. Some people are comfortable discussing insurance and some people aren't. And it's getting really comfortable about discussing the uncomfortable things that need to be discussed. Now, Federal Employee Group Life Insurance, FEGLI, is a group policy. The key word here is group, which means it's not tailored to meet anyone's exact insurance needs. So don't assume that it's the right amount of coverage for you. Take the time to carefully calculate exactly how much insurance you need to meet the needs of your survivors. Let's go ahead and take a look at an example. In this example, we have a sample federal employee who is age 50, making $70,000 a year, and is married with 2 children. So you can see his demographics on the screen. He elected basic FEGLI. He also elected option A and 5 multiples or 5 times option B for his FEGLI coverage. This gives him a total of $432,000 in life insurance coverage on himself. Okay, that's $432,000. Sounds like a lot of money until you start putting it in context of his surviving spouse and children. He first wants his 2 children to attend college. So that's about an $80,000 average. Now, a 4-year degree can run anywhere from $40,000 to hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's a lot of variance there, but where do you start off? And what are you specializing in? What is your major? What is your minor? Are you going to a junior college or a university? Are you going to public or private? Are you taking care of in-state or out of state? Are you doing the full meal plan while you're there, right? So those variables are very wide, but the average, right? We're going to go on the low end, which is going to be about 40,000 per kid. We're going to say 80,000 for this example. Let's also say he has $100,000 mortgage and he has about 8,000 outstanding in credit card debt and a $20,000 car loan that he wants to pay off in the event of his early demise, so his spouse doesn't have to take care of those debt payments. That seems reasonable enough. Now, right away, she's already down to $224,000 of that $432,000, right? So like half of those benefits are already spent. So don't just assume that FEGLI offers the exact amount of coverage that's right for you, because remember what I said at the beginning of this slide? It's a group policy, meaning it's only a temporary solution. As long as you're a federal employee, you have this temporary group policy. Now, consider talking to an advisor who can help you calculate your specific survivor needs in a way that will effectively supplement your FEGLI coverage if necessary. And speaking of calculations, there's one more important point to remember. FEGLI premiums increase as you age and increase sharply once you leave federal service. Our example employee is currently paying close to $1,400 annually just for basic option A and the 5 times option B and 3 times option C for his wife and 2 kids. Now, that's $15,000 for his spouse and $7,500 each for each child. Now, if he retires at age 65, that annual cost soars to nearly $7,400 annually. At this point, his kids will no longer be considered dependents. So the option C, that coverage then would only be for the spouse. And these higher costs is just another reason why you want to consider supplementing your FEGLI with permanent commercial insurance, because doing so may help you maintain insurability. It's going to allow you to lock in those premiums and give you more control.
Okay, so Becky, we got a couple questions.
Sure.
Michon asks, can FEGLI be decreased?
So you can go through, now generally you have to wait on a life event, marriage, divorce, birth of a child, something like that, right? You may want to check with your agency for open enrollment, right? So of course, once your child becomes of age and they're no longer in the home and they've already aged out, maybe you need to reduce that option C potentially, right? Maybe maybe you get a divorce, right? And you no longer need option C because maybe either the kids are grown and flown or you no longer have that spouse. You definitely need to take that option C off so that you are not paying for unnecessary coverage. Now, keep in mind all the legal requirements. So if in the divorce decree, you are decreed to keep that coverage, you need to make sure that you follow those guidelines. So absolutely, generally they fall within major life events. And hopefully everyone understands how that basic is calculated. It just takes your annual salary, rounds it up to the nearest 1,000, and then adds 2,000. So if we had someone making 97,500 annually, it would round to 98,000, add the 2,000, then you have 100,000 of basic. And I'll just tell you one thing before we move to mistake number 5. is that there is a real opportunity, and your advisors can help you navigate this piece. But as you near that retirement decision and putting all the things together for your federal benefit package, your retirement package, you may be able to maintain a portion of your basic coverage. And when you turn 65 or at retirement, those premiums turn to $0. So that is a neat feature. Now, on the options A, B, and C, those can get super costly because those premiums increase regularly, and they are quite expensive to maintain in retirement. But that basic coverage, maintaining the 25% or electing a 75% reduction, that is a smart way of keeping that 25% base for nothing. Once you turn 65, for the rest of your life, you're not paying premiums on those. 65 or retirement. Great questions. All right, Matt, are we ready to move forward?
We have one other one, but I think based off of time, I'll hold
Move
that.
forward.
It's the difference between FEGLI, term, and whole life. That can be a lengthy answer.
Discussion. Good. Thank you for that.
Yep.
All right, moving into our mistake number 5 is failing to plan for financial goals and events other than retirement. Now, we've put a really big focus on retirement, right? Because that's what we're aiming for. But your CSRS or FERS annuity, your thrift savings plan, and Social Security for our FERS friends are a potent retirement planning combination. But I'm guessing that most of you have financial goals other than retirement. It's rare, if at all, we have clients coming in the door that are planning for only retirement, right? Generally, there are other things that are important to them that they want to plan for, that they would like to achieve. So many of you might have some non-retirement goals, like what we see on this screen, right? Maybe we have children that in the future we want to help pay for the wedding, right? Maybe there are the education goals that we've already discussed. Maybe it is an annual vacation or a vacation, a big vacation every few years. Whatever those goals are, maybe a retirement home. You want to consider all of those things in your financial plan to make sure that you are saving and investing enough and regularly to meet those goals. Now, growing your retirement account is likely your primary long-term financial goal, and I get it. But saving and investing only for a retirement that's years away or even decades away can be unfulfilling in the short term and even undermine your ability to achieve other goals, like paying for college, weddings, etc. To avoid that possibility, consider putting a portion of your money in investments other than your TSP or IRA. You won't receive the tax advantaged offering by these retirement accounts, but you'll certainly have easier penalty-free access to your money that may allow you to enjoy the retirement journey as much as the destination. So where to invest the money for these immediate or shorter term goals really depends on many variables, including the amount of time until you need the funds. But identifying your priorities is key here, because you need to be able to identify those goals and what the priority is, and then select the appropriate investments for specific goals. Any questions there, Matt?
We do not have any on mistake 5.
Perfect. Moving to mistake number 6. One of the most challenging tasks when considering retirement is really determining an appropriate survivor annuity. Now, that is mistake number 6, underestimating your spouse's or other survivors' income needs once you're gone, right? It's very important to carefully consider the amount of income that your survivors will need. Both our CSRS and our FERS employees can elect a full or a partial survivor annuity with a corresponding reduction in your retirement annuity, or with your spouse's signed agreement, you can waive that annuity benefit. But a waiver only makes sense if you can fully fund a survivor's retirement through other savings, insurance, and investment means. To further the conversation, a survivor annuity, it's paid for the life of the survivor with annual adjustments for inflation. So this enables your surviving spouse to retain health benefits. It also allows the retiree's annuity to be restored if the beneficiary dies first. And although the survivor benefit reduces the retiree's annuity, it also reduces his or her taxable income. For most of our federal employees, electing some level of survivor annuity is a thoughtful, responsible choice at retirement. But determining the amount necessary to address your survivor's needs will require careful thought on your part. And it requires some consideration of other investments or insurance that can support those needs. Finally, mistake number 7 is worrying about the things that we cannot control. I'm going to show you 3 variables that will determine the success of your investing efforts. And I want you to select the one that you cannot control. Of course, it's going to be rate of return, right? There's time, there's input. Input simply means how much are you investing? How much are you investing? And then the third thing is return. Now, we can generally, we're in charge of that time, right? We can determine when we start investing, how frequently we invest, right? At what age we start, at what age we stop. So the time we have some control on. The input, we have some control, lots of control of how much are we investing, right? How much monthly, how much quarterly, how much annually, right? How much per paycheck? We have that control within ourself, right? The one element here that we cannot control is that rate of return. The one thing we can't control. So why are we worried about rate of return? Well, let's avoid that trap and quit obsessing over rate of return too frequently, because that's going to lead to counterproductive behaviors like trying to time the market and selling low and buying high and paying unnecessary fees and taxes. A better approach is to take the long view. Contribute regularly to your TSP and/or Roth IRA or traditional IRA. Invest a consistent amount over time may help you benefit from the historically upward trend of the market while smoothing out occasional downturns. And you can focus on things that you can control, like the length of time that you invest and the amount of money that you invest. We're going to look at this chart here, and what we're looking at this by removing that emotion of obsessing over things we can't control and understanding that timing is everything. And most investors, in my experience, really lack that timing component. But just because you start late doesn't mean you're behind the curve. You've got time on your hand, and advisors can help coach you and refine those goals. But let me give you a quick example of the hazards of undisciplined investing. Now, there's a study of investor behavior by Financial Services Research from Dalbar that shows that over the years of 1990 and 2020, right? So that's a 30-year spread. The average stock fund investor had an annualized return of just 6.24%, while the S&P 500 had a benchmark for stock market performance returning at 10.7% rate of return. Now, the difference there is only 4.46%, and that may not sound like a huge difference. But looking at the graph that you see in front of you, as you can imagine, due to compounding effects, the more time that passes, the greater the difference that discrepancy in return makes. Investors motivated by fear and greed, Dalbard concludes, tends to invest on market upswings and sell on downturns, and thus underperform the market. This may also pay more fees and taxes as they move their money around in pursuit of better performance. But in the absence of a disciplined plan for achieving their goals, in other words, they let their emotions get the best of them and they suffer the all too predictable consequences. And here we can see in 5 years what the difference is at the 10-year mark, at the 20-year mark, and at the 30-year mark. And what we're comparing here is in the gray boxes, we're looking at the average investor's return over these incremental periods versus the S&P return over that same time. Now, it's good to note that these values were based on straight line assumptions, compounding annually. So this will give you a good comparison of what the individual's return is versus the S&P. So hopefully that is helpful, and that is mistake number 7. Now, we're going to close out here. I do want to leave some time for questions. I've got this last screen, and then I want to show you some things dynamically. So I'm going to switch from PowerPoint in just a moment. But most of the mistakes that we've identified, we've covered 7. They can be attributed to one central problem. And the problem is this: most federal employees, or most people, honestly, in general, they don't have a comprehensive financial plan. Consequently, they make isolated, disconnected decisions about not only their benefits, but also their finances in general. And that's such an important statement. I want to repeat it. Consequently, folks are making isolated, disconnected decisions about not only their benefits, but their finances in general. I see this daily with folks making uninformed decisions on, let's say, collecting Social Security, right? That's a very personal decision. But if they're uninformed, they might pull that trigger too early or earlier than necessary for their specific situation and needs. But as a result of discussions today, I encourage each of you to meet with a professional advisor and devise a plan. If you already have an advisor, that is fantastic, and I'm so happy about that. But make sure that you're staying connected. Meet regularly to fine-tune your plan. But the plan needs to be in writing, right? And it needs to be reviewed and updated on a regular, ongoing basis. Why? Because things change. Our priorities change. Our goals change. The market changes, right? The value changes. Maybe our pay increases or decreases, and we need to shift the amounts, right? The invest part from a few slides ago, we need to adjust the amounts that we invest. But taking that one simple step to devise a plan and stay connected with an advisor to update as needed on a regular cadence can make a significant difference in your life. Whether you're just embarking on your career or planning to retire next year or anywhere in between. I hope that you have found today's presentation to be informative and worthwhile. I've enjoyed spending this time with you very much. I'm going to transition right now to 2 things I want to show you on screen, and then we're going to take some final Q&A. The first thing I want to show, and I'm going to blow this screen up. Matt, first of all, can you confirm that you see my internet browser? Perfect. So what I want to showcase for you is if you're unfamiliar with the cost of FEGLI and how that changes as an employee versus in retirement, you can do a simple thing. You can just go to your Google or other internet browser, and you can type in there opm.gov FEGLI calculator. And when you get there, make sure it is the government website. right? You're going to click into the FEGLI calculator, and you're going to come up to the OPM website. Now, there are premiums that are posted already for 2023, which is exciting. But when you scroll down to this section, you can put your name in here, and you can say, okay, let's use our sample example we used today. Annual basic salary is $70,000. He was 50. They get paid biweekly. Most generally, there are some exceptions. Let's say she has, in this case, she has standard A, option A, which is standard. Option B, the example we looked at is 5 times. So without thinking further or complicating it, we're going to say 5 times. And option C, we're going to say 5 times. And in this case, not a USPS employee, because we know that the Postal Service pays much of the cost of the FEGLI for the employee. Then you simply calculate. So a few inputs, a few seconds, and you can see what we want to do. We want to go to next and see a summary of your FEGLI coverage. So the summary report identifies that we have 70,000 of base pay, and it shows us how old we are. And here's our $432,000 of total coverage. That's basic, option A, B, and C, based on the multiples we've elected. This also tells me that we are paying $47.52 here. And for option C, we are paying $4.15. So a total biweekly holding of $51.67. The breakdown of this coverage is 72,000 of basic coverage. Because of the age, there's no extra benefit, but if you were under the age of 35, you get extra basic coverage for free that starts tapering off after that age, and it's stopped by the age of 45. Then we've got option A, is a very small premium, and notice that this column is cost per pay period, not monthly cost. So you would want to multiply this by your 26 pay periods and then divide by 12 months to get your monthly average cost of FEGLI. The 5 times, so 5 times $70,000 annual salary is $350 in option B. And then you have some ancillary other coverages for accidental death and dismemberment. So that's one thing. Now notice that the age bands will increase the premiums. So notice at age 60, option A increases from $1.80 per pay period to $6. Again, these are by age bands. So it doesn't increase after the age of 80. Option B, I want to draw your attention here. Notice how much option B changes over time as we get older. Going back to the comment I made earlier that the basic makes sense to do a 75% reduction because you're getting that for free. Any of the options, you need to carefully consider those based on affordability. Okay, and then you could go through the same process for your option C and just see how much that cost of coverage escalates the older we get. Now, again, on all of the options at age 80, those premiums don't grow anymore, right? They kind of level out from 80 beyond, but again, they jump pretty much from $4.15 in this example, because we're between the ages of 50 and 54, to when we turn 65, that same coverage is now $14.15 per pay period. So I wanted to show you that. Again, you're going to go to opm.gov FEGLI calculator and just kind of run your information and see what that's going to cost you if you decide to hold on to that FEGLI in retirement. The second thing I want to show you is my friend Matt with First Command servicing your area in your state. He is a financial advisor with First Command. Let me go ahead. You can type in your Google search, and I'll do it down here so it's easier to see. First Command, find an advisor. And when you do that, you can locate advisors in your area, in your state. I'm just going to type in here Kansas, right? And then it's going to pull up several offices that we have in the Kansas area. We're going to go to Leavenworth because I know that's where my friend Matt is. And you can see there's many advisors here. I'm going to click on Matt real quick. We are going to view his profile, and you can read his bio. You can also see his contact information. And I would encourage you, no matter where you're located, right, to connect with Matt. If you have additional questions, let an advisor kind of help you out. Like I said, you may already have an advisor, and that's exciting, but make sure you're staying in touch with them. If you're just now beginning that journey, I encourage you to reach out to Matt and let him help you. That concludes the formal part of today's discussion. And I know we've only got a few minutes left. So Matt, what questions are in the chat?
Yeah, we've got a few really simple ones. The first is from Mark. What's the cost of professional advice to develop a plan?
Great question. Now there's a couple of ways to do that, right? And it depends on the firm and how they are structured. Now, First Command, and Matt, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not sitting in the advisor seat. We don't charge a fee to meet with our active duty military or military retirees. I don't think we even do that for our federal employees, but each advisor is an independent contractor, and we do have a structure where there is a tiered professional service. Matt, in your experience, what are you finding that advisors are charging?
In our office, for federal employees, it is the same as active duty military clients. So there is no charge.
Yep.
It's complimentary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I find across our organization. I just didn't want to misspeak either.
Sure.
Because our advisors are independent and they can adopt whatever model our organization has in place. So if you want to get started on that, and I'll tell you, financial planning is not a cheap service. And there are many organizations and many companies that will charge you fees to come in and talk to them, but First Command doesn't.
Another easy question is, what is the default fund for the TSP?
That's a great question. Now, things have the landscape of TSP has recently changed, like this year. The default fund was G fund. And unfortunately, we see far too many people who are still invested in the G fund, not getting a great return, right? Because those are government securities. I believe it's now an L fund based on your retirement year. So if you are retiring close to 2035, right, you would be in the 2035 or the 2025 or the 2050 fund or the 2060 fund. So it's based on your retirement, the portfolio nearest to your retirement age, which has a combination. Those life cycle funds have a combination of G, F, S, C, and I funds. But it's important to know if those are really allocated towards your personal risk tolerance, which is what you'll need your TSP statement and coaching from an advisor to determine what that looks like for you.
One last question that I'll just answer, and then based off time, we'll turn it back over to Michelle and John. But Mishan, with First Command, your question is for everybody. He has found that if you don't have $500,000 or more in assets, that many firms are not taking on new clients. With First Command, in particular, the federal agency employee, we just need an annual salary of $75,000 or more, and we can provide that complimentary service. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
There's not, and that's we get that feedback, and most firms do require a minimum investments. First Command doesn't. We just require that we are working with folks who have a household income of $75,000 or more, or they're active duty military, retired military, some connection to service.
So Michelle, we had a couple other really good questions that I would love to be able to answer, but in the interest of everybody's time, we're going to turn it back to you.
Absolutely. And thank you to Becky for being our presenter today, as well as you, Matt, for also jumping in with everybody's questions. I kind of feel like since this is a two-part series, that there's lots that we haven't discussed today that I'm sure people would want to dive into deeper, kind of get their story or to ask questions, which we can definitely set up for January, since this is a two-part story or a two-part section. Kind of felt like Paul Harvey there for a moment, like this is the rest of the story. But we're always inclusive, and we always want to make sure that we're providing you a service as the Federal Executive Board and providing lunch and learns that are informative to you, helping with education, inspiring and engaging our federal employees. And what better way than once you've worked your life, how you want to retire the back end of your life. And this is definitely a key point. And I love how it says first command gets squared away. I mean, I love the motto behind that. So it's just my own personal thing. We are scheduled for part 2 of this series in January. So we'll be sending out reminders for people who have already registered. If you are aware of anybody who would like to come, please share the link. We'll also share the information down here at the bottom of the chat on where to find today's presentation information from the FEB website, or you can go to feb.gov. I would like to take just 1 second from everybody, and we're going to send out a poll. It's just 3 questions. Basically, the content that's being presented, what were your feelings behind that? Do you plan on attending part 2 for this section as well? And would you like to attend future lunch and learn sessions? We would love to have more engagement, have all of these great questions answered. It kind of gives you some time as well prior to our next presentation to kind of get those questions written down or emailed to Matt, since he is our local person here in the greater Kansas City area. If you know anybody outside of Kansas City, I'm sure Matt could refer you to who that contact would be. Does anybody have any last minute questions or, oh, and the people who have registered today will also get a link sent to everyone who's been registered so they can review this information as well. Let's see. Any last minute moments before we end?
I just want to say thank you so much for having me and letting me take part in this. This is exciting. And again, any future things that we can provide value on. Matt, thank you so much for partnering with me on this endeavor. And I hope that everyone on the call got a little bit of information that they needed, and happy to, if you'll share those questions, I'm happy to get you answers that you can then get back to the participants.
Perfect. And thank you both for joining us today, as well as everybody who joined us. John, it's always a pleasure. Becky and Matt, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll see everybody next month.
Sounds
you.
good. Thank you. Have a good